Hey lovelies, Lisa here, hashtag 78 days, and it is day 10, and today is, whoops, on his head, no less. Today is the Hermit. And the deck I have chosen is the Visconti Sforza, and this is the very nice, although it still doesn't quite satisfy my Jones for a full-size Il Meneghello version, but this is the very nice new US Games edition. Here's the small format of the, I have the small format of the Il Meneghello, and it's hard to tell in this light, but the colors are much more vibrant. The gold is beautiful, and then the cardstock, and it's unrivaled. Okay, so yeah, the Hermit. So, this is a card that, if we think about the progression that we've been seeing with the Trumps, from the ways in which the stability of the Emperor and the creativity of the Empress, the sort of female, male, Venus, Aries, that kind of complementarity of stability and creativity, how that kind of moves forward, that three and that four, moves forward and combines in something like the Chariot, and a sense of how do we balance polarities, how do we balance these opposing forces in our life, these dos caminos, to think about the language of the Grand Esoteric Tarot's version of the Lover. How do we balance the dualities and dualisms in our lives to move forward with the Chariot, right? And the Chariot is like this will, this energy that drives us forward. Balancing opposites, reining in the kind of unproductive forces, giving more rein to the good horse, but you got to keep these things in balance. And then we come to strength, which shows us the kind of, or in the way it's defined in the earliest decks, it's not forza, it's not force, it's not strength, it's fortezza, it's fortitude. So this sense of a kind of patient and vulnerable surrendering to competing forces, or to the whatever the red lion symbolizes in the Rider-Waite pack. That's the power, that's the energy that can really transform our world. That's where we've been. And now we're at the Hermit. So, when Rachel Pollack in 78 Degrees of Wisdom talks about the Hermit, I mean, her discussion is just brilliant and beautiful, but she talks about this turning inward, right? This way in which that outward directed energy needs to come inward, because, the real transformation is not going to come from the action we take into the world, but it's going to have to be anchored in the insight we gain within. So the Hermit as the retreat, the solitary, the withdrawing from the distractions of the world in order to find our inner calling and our inner voice before the next movement of the soul forward in her journey. And that's beautiful. And there's so many beautiful depictions of the Hermit with his or her, in some decks, lantern, that light, that inner spark. One of my favorite depictions, it'd be great if I had it here, is the Raven's Prophecy, where you've got the light that's inside the tree. There's often this clarity that whatever light we can shine out onto the world is the light that's kindled the divine spark within. But I didn't choose any of those depictions. I chose, this earliest depiction as this reminder that that lantern starts out as an hourglass, and the Hermit in his earliest depictions is probably something more like a depiction of time, a depiction of the fourth cardinal virtue, the virtue that isn't in the Trumps. So there are four cardinal virtues. There's justice, there's fortitude, there's temperance, and there's prudence. These virtues go back to Plato, they go back to the Republic. Cicero talks about them. They get adopted by Augustine and tied into theological virtues to talk about the the theological virtues of the good soul. But they're 4 cardinal virtues, and our deck has temperance, right? It has fortitude or force, bravery, courage, right? Strength, and it has justice, right? Where's prudence? So, in the 18th century, commentators often identify prudence with the hermit. And prudence, that word in Latin, prudentia? I guess prudentia is the medieval, I don't remember. But it comes from providentia. It comes from this word providence, which literally means the ability to see ahead. The prudence, the wisdom, the sage advice, the sage counsel that the old man can offer. Think about, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, think about, the Meisters, right? That wisdom, that sage advice of the elders comes from their ability to see ahead, which derives from their knowledge, their experience of history, of what's gone before. It evolves from their temporal perspective, the ways that they inhabit a sense of time, the ways in which they hold that hourglass of human existence in their hands. So it's not so much that prudence is really important to me, but what's important to me is this relationship to time. And particularly thinking about time as essential for what insight is. I live in this world, and this is very important to me right now in this current moment in my life as I'm undergoing some interesting professional developments. And interesting is perhaps in scare quotes here. Interesting is like, but also exciting that we live in a world of such speed and such lack of deliberation. And all of us who, do this crazy tarot thing, we're all craving an ability, I think, to hunker down and set deep roots into our life and to really explore what we're feeling, what the world needs. If we're working with clients, we're trying to help them really explore their path. We're trying to help people lead more thoughtful and awake and flourishing lives. And yet, I think we often imagine that ability to know what comes next and to know how to move forward, that's supposed to come in this like flash of insight. Like if we don't have this kind of epiphanic, intuitive, like, I see the light, that somehow something's wrong. But everything I know about contemplative life is that those epiphanic moments, those flashes of insight, that moment where the light in the lantern burns bright, that comes from long, dedicated, quiet waiting, listening, waiting on the Lord if you're inclined toward monotheism or the goddess, waiting on the universe to unfold, waiting for every sand in the hourglass to pass through that narrow neck. So how do we cultivate a life that enables more waiting, more slowness, more heartful, mindful, quiet and disciplined practice? For one thing, we hang out with the cards. Okay, that's all I got this morning. Blessings and thanks to you all for watching.